Welcome and thanks for joining this third Leadership Lounge. So far we've had Carl join us, Jeff and Romke Fountain, and we're not talking about the first attempt that Johnny and I made, so we just try and forget that one altogether. And we're so happy to have Maureen Menard with us this time. We'll introduce you just in a few minutes, Mo. All our interviews, we aim at them being just around an hour, but we might also just go a little bit over. And we assume that since it is being recorded, if you need to go, just go and you can come back and watch it later, from the live stream. So we don't want to rush it. We rather get, everything you have, Mo, just harvest all the wisdom we can get out of you within this time that's been given us. But Johnny, you are sitting in Northern Ireland, and we have Maureen with us from Cape Town, and I'm sitting in Denmark. And you get the privilege of introducing the ELLC this time, Johnny.
Okay.
I look forward to hearing your version.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So we wanted to start every one of these with just a quick reminder, I guess, an introduction to what the ELLC project is, the European Leadership Learning Community. Steve Mayers and kind of really has brought this forward and been the driving force behind this vision to create an online community for YWAM leaders in Europe to share resources and also to learn. We can't always go to conferences, we can't always go to schools, and so an online forum creates the opportunity for us to be able to access great teaching anywhere we are. Like we said in the previous weeks, there's different elements to it. There's a website that's in development for it, and the big launch is for September. But every month there'll be a kind of a TED Talk style, we're calling it LDX, Leadership Development, and X being 10 minutes. So it's about a 10-minute kind of teaching. There'll be this kind of leadership lounge set up. There'll be blogs, podcasts, possibly, and just other ways of sharing resources with us. At the moment, this is this Facebook group is an opportunity for us to kind of just straight away gather people because of the coronavirus, the lockdown. We have felt that these kind of Facebook Live interviews is an easy way for us to jump straight into getting leadership lounges off the ground. They're not going to be every week from now on, but for this month and in June, we're going to be doing it every week. So. And I think next week, we're really delighted that Steve and Reet Mayers are going to be joining us. So just want to encourage you to invite people to join this group. The Facebook group was a kind of a private group, but you can now find it now. So if people search for ELLC YWAM Europe, you'll be able to find the group there, and Belinda Chaplin may even put it in the comments below this on Facebook. So if you want to, please invite your staff. It's not a closed group. Well, it's closed. The idea is it's for YWAMers and for YWAM Europeans especially. But if you think you're in leadership or you've got some potential, encourage your staff to get involved or, invite people to join. Okay, so that's my intro, Tova.
You did very well. Yeah, and then Maureen, so happy you can be with us this time. I had kind of hoped to also see Riley. Maureen, she has a Great Dane, and she loves dogs, and I think especially Great Danes, which I'm very pleased about, being one myself. But she is a creator of beauty. You can also see that behind her where she's sitting. She will rearrange her house every time she comes home from a very long trip, I think, or almost at least. So she would always create beauty around her. Also, if she comes to your base as a speaker, I'm sure she will rearrange maybe the guest room. I'm not sure. She's a fabulous hostess. I think which is true of all the guests we've had so far. I know Carl and Jeff and Romke, everyone. Just there's something about leadership and hospitality, I think. Those who offers hospitality, I think they lead, actually. She's also a fantastic facilitator of all kinds of groups. I think that's marked by her commitment to inclusion. She would be very inclusive in her leadership and in her articulating a process. she would always make sure that everyone is with her in the process. She has a brilliant gift of weaving distinct threads together in a process, also in a process of hearing God's voice together, making sure that, it's just a helpful process to together hear what God is saying and determine that. She's a strategic thinker. It seems like she's always 5 to 10 years ahead and also planning that way for herself. She has a superpower of finding brilliant deals on Airbnb and other beautiful places. She's also I think she's well known for her extremely early nights and very early mornings. I think she has an amazing capacity to think strategically at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. So if she's going to email you, it may be, marked 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. But she serves as an acting provost and has a team around her, and really appreciate you doing that and giving leadership to the U of N, and also being part of moving us forward as a U of N right now. You also serve as the International Vice President for Leadership and Staff Development. I think I got some external help here as well, in introducing you. But if you're not in YWAM, she could be an interior designer, an event organizer, a vet, or a politician, I think. There might be quite a few lists, longer. It could be a longer list than that. And then I'm happy to call you my friend as well. And I've just seen how both you live and just the integrity in both your leading and your living. So thank you. But Johnny, I know you have a little story as well that you.
Yeah, just really quickly, just before we get stuck into the interview, Maureen. The last time I think I saw you was our very first DTS when we had just been given this space here in Rostrevor, and you spoke on our very first DTS. So I don't know if you remember. You've probably spoken on 1,000 DTSs since then, but I always remember, I was impressed when it came to you were in the middle of a round the world flight. You were going to 10,000 places, and obviously we had a budget for our speakers, and you made it clear to me that you didn't expect even your flights to be reimbursed. And I know, I'm sure that was, but there was something about your attitude, and it was like you were coming to serve our base. You weren't coming to receive. And I just want to kind of acknowledge that. I hope that wasn't a big secret, but now everyone's going to want you to come and speak on the DTS. but no, there's something special about I think your attitude, and for me, it's the best of YWAM. You were serving, you were being generous, and so I thank you for what you've done for us here, but also many places around the world. So thanks for being here, Maureen.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's get straight into the interview. At this point, can you? A lot of people would know you, Maureen, but some may not. Can you just sketch in briefly kind of your journey in YWAM? Like, where did it begin? You've been to a couple of different bases or locations. What was an early project you got involved in your first years?
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, Tova, for your intro and for your comments. Riley may come in, so she is unmistakable if she does come in. So she'll bark or make herself known. So I will introduce her if she comes. I was finishing up my master's degree in New Testament theology at Wheaton Graduate School in 1982. So I would have been about 27 years old. And I was exploring what I wanted to do following that. So I had become a Christian when I was at university. I grew up Catholic, and the evangelical world was a new world for me. And I just wasn't sure what women could do. And, Wheaton back then was very conservative. And so that didn't present me with a whole lot of opportunities. And so while I was exploring what the next step might be, I signed up for short-term missions at the college, and they sent me to the Ark in Amsterdam. So I was supposed to be there for about 6 weeks, But because I had finished my degree and I was looking for the next step, once I got there, I think after 3 or 4 days, I just ripped up my return ticket and I stayed on. So that's when Floyd and Sally were leading the base in YWAM Amsterdam. So I worked on the ARC and discipleship for about 3 years. And that was just about the time the mission had made the decision that the DTS was going to be the doorway into the mission. And so Floyd then recruited me to lead DTSs there. So then he thought it might be a good idea I did one first. So I did a DTS, and then in '85, I started leading DTSs. So then from Amsterdam, we sent our outreach teams out with an intention of pioneering. And so I was in Amsterdam for about 10 years, and one of the cities we pioneered was Budapest, Hungary. So this is when the Soviet Union opened up and teams were going in. So in '92, I moved to Budapest, Hungary. And we had a large team that was pioneering in Budapest, and that was just about the time the Yugoslavian war was happening. And so then the former Yugoslavia opened up. So I did quite a bit of work in Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia, and then connected down in Thessaloniki with Sverker Weissglass and his wife, and on and on. So I worked in that part of the world for about 10 years. And then from there, I moved to Muizenberg here in Cape Town. And I've been here about 18 years.
Okay. And Maureen, you mentioned Amsterdam. I'm sure Floyd and Sally were inspirational leaders at the time. Is there a story about them that you could share that kind of grabbed you? And are there other influences that if you were to kind of pick one or two kind of key YWAM influences in your life, who would they be and why, do you think?
Wow. All right. So there is no doubt that Floyd and Sally have had the greatest impact on my life. And they continue to be very close friends. In fact, through my days of working with them in Amsterdam, their family actually adopted me into their family. So I have a certificate that says my name is Maureen Menard. So that was quite significant, because not only were Floyd and Sally role models in so many ways, Floyd in his apostolic, but also, there's a people gift and empathy that Floyd had, that the way that he led, the way that he connected with people, was the way he even, led our base. We were 300 staff at the time I was there, which was one of the larger bases. I learned a lot just kind of being close to Floyd and all that leadership. But Sally, in some ways, is a complete opposite. And so her personableness, her attention to detail, if you went out with Sally, you'd be out with, for 3 hours. Where with Floyd, you might have a meeting for 30 minutes, and so that combination of the two, and them embracing me personally, and really for myself, not so much for what I could do, and then continuing that relationship over these 30 years or so, was very, very significant. But I think if I think of Floyd, what would be something quite significant? I come from a broken background. My mom was an alcoholic. She divorced my dad. I have a lot of broken elements to my story. And although I came into the mission when I was almost 30, I still had some baggage. And unfortunately, I have a strength of personality and a strength of leadership gifting. And so people can quickly relate to my strength and not necessarily recognize the broken elements. And I think what was so helpful with Floyd and Sally was the ability to be really vulnerable and transparent with them. That I honestly didn't hide anything back from what might be going on in my life at the time. And their ability to wisely listen, not hold that against me, but at the same time, sometimes It was necessary for me to work on some personal stuff before I moved on in some maybe leadership category. But I don't know that I've ever found a relationship like that. And I don't know of many people who had leadership like that. And I'm just so grateful for Floyd and Sally.
Yeah, thanks, Maureen.
Thank you, Mo. If I was asked, who would be a great influence on my life, it would be you. Definitely, you're up there among the top. And I think it's for some of the same reasons that you just mentioned about Floyd and Sally. You're vulnerable and you could be transparent with them, but you are a transparent and vulnerable leader, I think, and leading that way, making you a safe person. Now, in just saying that, I want to also just encourage other people, because I know you have imparted and impacted a lot of those listening today. Please just write down an encouragement or a way that you have appreciated Maureen or being impacted, something you learned from her. Just put it in the feed, and for all of us to see, really. I think that would be honoring. The next question, Mo, is we asked this to everyone that we put in the spot. We did give you the question ahead of time, so you had a chance to pull out. But we're basically asking, what has been one of your significant mistakes, if any, that that you've been reflecting on it? You think there's kind of you realize there's something that we could learn from as well. I think so often we stigmatize mistakes, but I think there's so much, learning in it as well, if done right.
I've been, as you said, you sent me this question, so I've been reflecting on it, and okay, so I'm going to start at least with identifying a weakness, which probably contributes to many mistakes. And so I would say that part of my broken background, or part of my brokenness, is there's a deep need. I have a deep need or deep desire to please, and to especially please sort of someone in authority. And so if you guys know the Enneagram, for example, I've been introduced to that in the last 5 or 6 years. So I would be a 3 on the Enneagram. And so often when I have been in a situation, whether it was back in Amsterdam or in my Budapest days or Balkan days, or even currently, working with the university leadership, but if I go back to those younger years, I would have a strong motivation to perform, a strong motivation to take a role on, not necessarily because I had a sense that God was asking me, but because I wanted to make Floyd happy, or I wanted to make Lauren happy. Sometimes I would be in situations where I would actually be stepping into leadership, but leadership behind somebody. And usually it was a man in a role of authority who actually didn't have all the gifts to really lead. And I was quite happy to just kind of emerge in the background and really make that team work. So with that, there's a bit of dysfunction in all of that. And so then that would lead to some weird team dynamics, or, but when I trace it all back, it comes back to this impulse in me, that over the years I've had to become more and more self-aware, so that I could really be disciplined enough not to just be impulsive, but to truly pay attention to what is the opportunity, or what is the situation, or what are my motives, and really be able to listen to the Spirit a bit more. So I know that's not very concrete, but
no, that's good. Like,
very good.
I think I think you're touching on something. All of us, if you get into leadership, you can be the desire to perform, the desire to seem successful, are all probably things that compete against that kind of calling to be humble and to walk in a true humility. So
Right.
Yeah, thanks for that's very transparent, and it's lovely to know you read the Enneagram too. So
There you go.
I'm a 9, so I need to have a nap after this.
Oh, there you go.
Another a difficult one. I just kind of was thinking about it last night, just to ask you, is just this reality that I mean, I suppose I started leading teams or a base 18 years ago, and one of the things that just often pops up is conflict between leaders, conflict if you're a leader with maybe someone you're leading. And it strikes me, ego is a big thing that kind of can be a problem for a leader. If you kind of consider this reality of conflict and leadership, why do you think it happens often in leaders or even in YWAM? And how have you seen some kind of maybe healthy examples of being transformed or people moving past pride or ego or, you know?
Yeah, Johnny. Okay, so conflict. That term, it can be used in a variety of situations, right? And so again, how to respond in a concrete way that could be helpful. I think for myself, when I'm experiencing conflict with someone that perhaps I'm leading or leading with, I'm prone to, what's the word? Again, because I have this need to please. If I even, I'm quick to think somebody is thinking very negative of me. And so receiving any kind of critique or any kind of feedback that might be negative has to be one of the most painful experiences for me. And I'll do anything to avoid it. And so therefore, as soon as I'm in a situation when it's not just my imaginary, displeasure with me, but there actually is some real conflict, it takes quite a bit of self-discipline to actually face the reality that something's not going right. And not to, this may not be true of all YWAMers, but we live very hurried lives, very fast-paced lives. And then, of course, primarily, I've been in a global role for, 20 years. And so those that I'm most likely to have conflict with don't even live in my environment. They live somewhere else around the world. And so, so I guess one of the things for myself, okay, so this is just me and how I recognize conflict, is a discipline of moving toward whomever it might be and invite for a conversation. So that would be more of a relational conflict that could come from, even misunderstanding or disagreement over a decision. I know when I see conflict between two colleagues of mine, I can remember way back in the days when we had some kind of senior leadership. We've changed the name of that so many times, but it was back when Leland Paris might have been with us, and Don Stevens and Floyd and others. There was a lot of disagreement among that group over many things. And honestly, I found myself as a young leader in their midst with a real idealistic kind of perspective that if we just hear one another out, surely we'll come to some agreement together. And that was just a little bit too optimistic. And what I recognize, because some of these leaders, all godly in their own right, and of course I was primarily in Floyd's shadow, so more than anything I would have his perspective of things. But what I came to see is that somewhere there was an understanding that each of their gifting, each of their calling, how could I say, there was just some I would want to say almost natural conflict in perspectives or even decision making, and yet there was a commitment to moving forward together. but they just really needed a lot of space around each other. Like they could have never survived on the same base.
Wow.
And so there was some wisdom, I think, in just sort of recognizing that, you know, we are this organization where we come from so many different perspectives, whether it's our denominations or our cultures or even our age, that sometimes we just need a bit more. We need to draw a bigger circle and allow some freedom, you know, for differences. And I think we're going to need more and more of that as we continue to grow and we see more and more nations join us, etc. So,
yeah. Thanks, Maureen. I mean, I think you're just touching on reality, and it's really helpful. You know, we learn from real stuff, not pretending everything's okay. We're just going to ask a question here. We were going to do it later, but maybe it just ties in terms of what we're talking about. Just about, we asked Jeff and Romke last week just about their role as husband and wife and roles in YWAM, and I asked the question about how often, you know, even though we're kind of a Why Not Women organization, men often end up at the table and often with the microphone. You've really modeled how to be a powerful leader of authority and be a woman as well. And what advice do you have to kind of young women in YWAM in Europe and how to kind of really be authentic and be who they're called to be, and even what advice to kind of male leaders who sometimes can kind of be a bit blind to realizing God has called us to really give space at the table. More than space, has called us to give leadership to women. And do you have any kind of advice on that? And you know, obviously it's a big topic.
It's a big topic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big topic. Maybe I realize there are many strong female leaders in our mission that are married, but maybe I'll just start with a comment about being a single woman. Yeah, so just recently I've been added to the Founders Circle for a 2-year period. And so we had a round of meetings last week. And just so happens right now in the Founders Circle is everyone is a husband and wife team, and I'm the only single. And then I think maybe 3 of the wives joined us and the others really didn't join us. It was what do you call it? We had to do it through Zoom, and it was crazy hours. So I'm sure there's all good reasons for that. But what was so interesting is in the opening session where we were personally connecting with one another, everybody's, you know, how are you doing? How's the family? How's the grandkids? You know, and so for 10, 15 minutes, we're hearing stories about the kids and the grandkids and, you know, this and that, and they come to me. And so I've learned to embrace my life. I have a fabulous, full life with good friends around me and my dog, Riley. And, so I just started to talk about my life. If you want to get a picture of who I am and what my context is out of what I'm leading, I'm going to talk about that as being as significant as your new grandkid. I mean, not, you know what I mean? So I think, another whole reality is that, when I watch single women now, this is true of all of us in YWAM that are single women, but particularly those of us that are in leadership, the amount of responsibility that I carry as a single woman, in addition to the responsibility I carry for my personal life as it relates to fundraising and my home and all the decisions I have to make. And now I'm having to face decisions about how am I going to age, my will, who will take care of me as I age in case I get sick. Like, I just don't have children or grandchildren that I can lean into. I made decisions to move away from cousins and others that perhaps would have stepped up to that if I had had a life really shared with them, but I don't have that. So those are some things that I would love to see us more and more have conversations in the mission, particularly among those of us that are single and female, whether we're in leadership or not, that, they're just part of they're just part of our lives, and it's really important. So that's kind of present situation. But I can maybe say a little bit about emerging in leadership. I always made it a point. I always made it a point to make sure that I built a strong relationship with each of the wives of the men that I work with. Now, some of those relationships were more natural than others. But I recognized, I was often in leadership groupings where I could have been the only woman in the group, really. And I can think back to my European days or my Amsterdam days or other days. And then also I also learned over the years that that the most important things, the most important conversations that are happening in a leadership grouping are not happening during the meeting. Mm-hmm. And they're not the points that are on the agenda. Mm-hmm. And so I found myself over and over again recognizing the guys that went out to play tennis after the meeting, or the guys on the golf course, or those guys hanging out. Like, I want to be part of that conversation, but I don't know how to get into that. Mm. And I found myself, and honestly, it wasn't a choice to exclude me. It wasn't like anybody was doing something out of a bad attitude. It's just kind of the reality of circumstances. And so over and over again, I had opportunities like that not to get bitter or not to blame, or like I learned how to face that as a challenge and recognize, okay, I'm not going to get into that conversation, but how can I more naturally find ways to interact where we're really having the real conversation and not the one around the table. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's very deep. That last point, the most important things are said are often not in leadership meetings. And I think that's really true. And how do we bring those questions into the meetings, or, find ways to not be excluding people who incidentally would be excluded because they're younger, or because they're a woman, or they're single or married or whatever. So.
Right. Well, here's the thing, Johnny. It's not even so much how to bring the questions in, because again, as Tova said, part of how I function is as a facilitator. So you can bring the questions in, but how are you going to get the honest answer? When are we really going to, do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just really, okay, here we go. And really, get at what sometimes there's tacit beliefs that are driving us. Mm-hmm. And you almost need a safe space to let whatever you're thinking emerge, or whatever your resistances emerge, and finding the space for that, especially in our mission with the fast pace that we live at, is just sometimes a challenge. Yeah.
It's really good. Thanks, Maureen.
Yeah, thank you, Mo. I think we may need a whole series actually on this theme, because it is quite major if it means unlocking, half of God's image on earth to fully function, in their gifts. So thank you very much. Just watching you as well has been a great comfort to me, because I've often ended up, with a lot of males in my meetings as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've been in some of them as well together. But this is another topic. Now we are in a lockdown edition. So these Leadership Lounge lockdown edition. And I know you've been under very strict lockdown in South Africa. It is lightened just a little bit, but still rather strict. What have this lockdown meant for you, and anything you've become aware of, just personally in this season?
Okay,
grounded, you can say.
Yeah. So I live in my own home here in Cape Town. So I've had it for about 18 years now. So long story that goes with that. But we live in a peninsula at the tip of Cape Town. So we're surrounded by water. And across the street from me is an informal settlement of about 40,000 people. From that informal settlement, a young man, Leba, came to know the Lord, and through some of our outreaches there. And long story short, he did a DTS, and then he staffed DTSs, and then he married another YWAMer, and they're my housemates. So they're with me during this lockdown period of time. And Neba still has family that live in Massy, but in addition to that, there's a lot of ministry that is done in Massy, as well as a lot of friends that they have in Massy. So as I'm home and haven't traveled since December, by the way, I've owned this house for 18 years, and I am usually on the road about 200 days out of the year. So I've never been here this long in all the years I've lived here. And of course, I'm paying attention to the news, and I'm paying attention to the added what's the word I want to say? The added complications of what would be the right thing to do if you're the government when you have as much poverty as there is here, but then also you have the history that they have. And so I'm finding myself really more and more emotionally connecting to the story of South Africa. And that's a real gift. That's a real gift for me, because I've always learned, Floyd taught me early on in my days, like when I would lead a lecture phase somewhere and then, send the outreach teams out, that, wherever God has called the DTS to even have the lecture phase, there's something to give to that city or that village or that town. Like, you are there to bless. You're not just there and then get sent out on outreach, somewhere else. And so I've always had in my heart that this was not just a place for me to kind of fly in and out of. And in fact, from my home, actually, and many of you may have been in my home, I wouldn't even know because I've had so many YWAMers live here. But Floyd and Sally actually lived here when they first moved into the valley. And some of the early MDMs that I ran here, that's a school to train DTS leaders and staff, from those early days in 2005 and 6, there's hundreds that live in the valley now and do all kinds of ministry. But anyway, but nevertheless, it's caught my heart at a deeper level, what's really happening here. And so that's one thing that I'm very grateful for. And I guess another, now, I mean, I've had Zoom meetings, right? So we just tried to lead a month of university meetings that were supposed to be 3 weeks long in Mexico, and we tried to do it all over Zoom, and we're still in the middle of them. So it's not like I have tons of time on my hands. But at the same time, I think I'm 65. I just turned 65 on the weekend. And it's really been an opportunity to pause and think through some priorities that I don't know that I would have done as thoroughly as I'm doing them now without this forced kind of break. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. I mean, I think that's true for many places, that also running DTSs or bases, when you can't travel, you start looking, to the local. So I wonder if something beautiful is going to come out of this, in local ministry and more local heart growings for the local. So yeah.
I mean,
so
I can remember.
Not started chewing on the. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I saw you write something on Facebook that you have not started chewing the furniture. What was it again? It was with dogs.
No.
Yeah.
So it's so far so good. It honestly does look like we'll be shut down through. I don't think they're going to open up the international airport maybe by October, but I even then I don't know. Nobody knows really, but we'll see.
Yeah. Of course, it's a kind of a Christian formation question. How have you done through this time? And maybe not everybody knows that you formed the Christian Formation Center and you birthed the master's program that I've been blessed to be a part of, and so many, they've been raving about this program, what it's done to, for themselves personally. But can you say something about, why did you take the time and energy to throw so much time and energy into forming this center and the master's program? What was the driving force in that? Also in relating to leadership, I should say. Yeah.
Right. I think the way. Okay, so for since 97 or 98, I've been leading the International DTS Center along with Patty, and for the longest time with Pete Thompson as well. And so my strategy of leadership is really through developing leaders. So, I mean, to this day, I've never had someone staff me. And for all the leaders that have people that staff them with a variety of tasks, no problem. I'm just not motivated that way. So as soon as somebody comes into my sphere, I want to know what's your passion, what's your gift, how can I create space, what kind of input do you need? And so over the years, as we were developing the network for the DTS Center, I just created one leadership development program after another. And probably about 10 years ago now, I had some space and some time to really pray through some things. And I just asked the Lord, what do I have to give away at this stage of my life? Honestly, I'm not the best DTS leader. There's many DTS leaders out there. I'm not the best at running DTS workshops. There are many who do that much better than me. And I looked at this vast network, the DTS Center network, which had 70 members in it, and then they all had resource teams around them. And I asked the Lord, what can I give? I felt like I'd like to see if we could create a master's degree in discipleship. And so I did a little bit to see what the Christian world was doing out there to create such a degree. And of course, I'm part of the university leadership. So along with Tom and Marcus and David, we then, created some new policies that made distance learning a possibility. So we were able to, so that opened the door for this degree to emerge. But in the beginning, it really was a desire to take whatever leaders that were with me and take them through a process of growth so they could be even more fruitful. Yeah. So that was my original goal. Now in the process, as God drew people to our teams, so whether it's Tom Bloomer was with us for a while, Camille Bishop, John Peachy, Steve Cochran, Pam Drenham, and others. But now all of a sudden they're coming in with an expertise in a category that I don't have. And so we found ourselves in this incredible creative process that was not only shaping the students that were with us, but we ourselves were being shaped. And what we also found is that the very principles of Christian formation are the foundations in which this mission was birthed. It's reflected in our values. It's reflected in the reality that you must do a DTS first. And so that's really how it emerged. And as we continue, I think even though we as a mission have this motto, know God and make him known, if I were to give us a corporate kind of personality, I think our corporate personality is we are doers. And we make him known. And, even now I'm reviewing our values as an assignment from the Founders Circle. And when you read our first value on knowing God, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it says something like this. we're called to know God's nature and character as described in the scripture, which is the foundational document. And then the third sentence is something like, anyone who enjoys fellowship with God will make him known. Like, that's what it says under knowing God. And then when you get to the making him known one, which is number 2 in our values, it's just all about making him known. There's nothing said there about abiding, like the fruit of our life should come from a place of abiding in God. And so, when you look at the 4 legacy words of Lauren, they're all outward focused, amazing words, right? So the waves, the spheres, the Magna Carta, and Bible distribution, right? Those are great, broad goals that, we find our place under one or more of those in the mission, but they presume an experience of God together that will really that will bear the kind of fruit that will last, and not only bear the fruit, but we will bear that fruit in a way that represents what God is like. And so more and more, I feel this urgency that we cannot presume that we as a mission will move forward and do what we do out of a real, deep, abiding relationship with God together, that we could just become a business that executes strategies to get goals met around the world. We could.
Wow. That's really good. 2 miles up the road from us, I doubt that you visited there, Maureen, when you came to us 10 years ago. 2 miles up the road is a Benedictine monastery, and
I didn't go there, but yeah.
I mean, and Benedictines are amazing people that take a vow of stability, and I always joke with them. It's like the opposite of YWAM, because we take a vow of instability. It's go, right. go. Whereas the Benedictines basically take a vow that they will never leave that monastery. And yet there's probably no place more significant in Ireland, I would say right now, that is exciting people to know God more than is 6 monks who pray together all day, every day. Everyone keeps coming to visit them, because they want to see what does it look like to know God. And I think there's something very powerful in that. I think we're so quick to go. That deeper, more uncomfortable question. I mean, Brother Thierry up the road, he says, people who talk all the time, they talk because they can't handle silence. They don't want to be alone with themselves. And he says, and I think as YWAM, we're wanting to do and go and talk. And we sometimes need that deeper kind of place of learning to sit with Jesus. And that maybe is what will make us most contagious, more than the greatest strategy.
And I am strategic. I mean, my main, in the Strength Finders, I'm strategy, right? But again, if it's, it needs to be born in prayer, born in God. There's got to be something more organic, right? Than just anyway.
Yeah. If we bring it to the DTS, Maureen, obviously that's something you've been very involved in and kind of overseeing the International DTS Center. And, we often, I look back at my DTS with very much, they were this amazing, magical time in my life where God was so real. And we often, we think of the DTS as so much goodness in it, but in all that you're learning and going through, is there stuff that you're learning from outside? Or if you could add one element into DTSs that often isn't in DTSs, what would it be? How could we make DTS better, in that sense,
Okay, so you guys are probably familiar with the reframe material, the DTS reframe material that our team has produced over the last few years. And so that reframe material is a response to this question, if I could say it, right? So we, and so without there's so many things we wanted to see strengthened in the DTS, and so we just created those visuals and presented the DTS. It's not a new DTS, same DTS, but trying to present it in a way that really brings out some of the things that we think are really important. So that's just a plug for the reframe material. So let me see if I can hone it down to something very specific. A while back, when I was in the middle of writing the reframe material, I went on the records. So I have access, in the record system, so I can look at every DTS and who their speakers are and what the topics are. And so not many of us can do that, but I do, as a vice president, I do have access, so I can do that. And so I had a quick look just to see, one of the, and this is true of my experience as I travel and speak in DTSs and see what's being presented. When Jesus is a theme for the week, he's often the theme in a week that we call the Sin, Repentance, and the Cross Week. I don't know whoever labeled that week and how it spread through the mission, but somehow sin, repentance, and the cross, that's like a week. And so that fascinates me right there. But when you get into that week and you see kind of, okay, what's being taught and what's being practiced in terms of what's the application for the students, the week is really more about me and my sin and the need to repent. And then Jesus is pretty much just, the empty cross. Like the empty cross is kind of in the middle of the room. And then there's some kind of an application where you might write your sin down and nail it on the cross, or I don't know, a bowl that you could throw it in and somebody burns it. Or I had a week like that in my DTS. So it's not so much, it's not that week is a bad week. But if that's all we say about Jesus, like we're missing something really big. And then the other place that Jesus will kind of show up in the curriculum will be when you're prepping to go on outreach. And so there might be on the week on evangelism or the gospel. And then so often the gospel is just a very short version of the gospel. And again, we just don't spend enough time, especially in the Gospels, and we don't spend enough time really allowing the Spirit of God to make this person, this God-man Jesus, present to us and available to us. And so as I study the scriptures, I never see an invitation to come to an empty cross to confess our sins. I see an invitation that there is one who has made a place for us in the presence of the Father. He is like us in every way, yet without sin, and he can empathize with our weakness. And we are to approach him boldly and fix our eyes on him. And what I've learned about shame over these years in our Christian formation track is one of the things that really breaks the power of shame is eye contact. If I can look into the eyes of someone and I can share with vulnerability my pain or my sin, and you look at me with your eyes, it breaks the power of shame. And there's just so much more I could say about this, but I really feel like we've reduced Jesus down to a few formulas. And if we're truly going to be a people that the Spirit of God grows, to live and love like Jesus in every neighborhood of the world, we need to get to know who he is.
That's really good. And, it reminds me, Tom Wright kind of, in one of his books kind of challenges, the ancient Christian creeds kind of start with, Jesus was conceived by the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, crucified, died, and buried. And Tom Wright makes the point that Jesus in the creeds is he was born and he died and rose again. But what happened to all of the Gospels, which are of his life, So I guess you're touching on the humanity of Jesus and, that embodied understanding of of God that we can find through Jesus, kind of bringing that more into DTS. Just a practical thing, you mentioned the reframe curriculum. If people were watching this and they wanted to access that, where do they access that? They Google it?
Yeah, okay, there's two things. So the International DTS Center website, which is ywamdtscenter.com, but there's also a Reframe website.
Okay.
And that you're going to have to Google, because I do not know that off the top of my head. But we're making it, it's just beginning. It'll be an interactive website with more tips and, you know, more ideas and et cetera for the design of the DTS, but it has its own website as well.
Okay. So I'm sure somebody might post a link in the comments below this. Just the last question I'll have, and then Tova can finish it. Just in terms of COVID-19, obviously, there's people aren't sure what the autumn looks like or the fall if you're from that part of the world. What do you have some advice for us in terms of DTSs if running schools? If, like, for instance, if the lockdown continued in some form, how could we run DTS, or what should we be doing instead of that? Or
Yes, so we did get some communication out. So I'm most likely you guys have seen this, but from the university perspective, any of our coursework beyond DTS, so this is not DTS, but beyond DTS, if there's a possibility to create some online version of that coursework, we're trying to make a way for that to happen for you. And it does depend on what is the course and is it doable, you know, at a distance or online. But we're trying to be as flexible as we can be with our coursework. With the DTS, we are not opening up the door for the DTS to go online. So that is not a possibility. Okay, so what is a possibility is those of you that, you know, you already have students that have connected to you, maybe they've applied, maybe there's a date that's been set where they were hoping to join you. It is possible for you to create some kind of online course that, like a preliminary kind of course that you could do with them. Obviously, you could create a Facebook page. I mean, any way to stay relationally connected with them could be a good thing. So when the possibility opens for you to gather so that you can do your lecture phase together, that's what we would hope. So just to be clear, right now you are not able to do a DTS online. And that comes with the full authority of the mission leadership as well as the university leadership. Even though I know how difficult that is for those of us that lead bases that really depend on our DTS in many ways, including future staff or future students for, you know, other schools. So we're paying attention to it, and if this thing goes on for a long period of time, and God speaks, and we're able to make a change, we will let you know.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mo. Of course, there's also a possibility of mobilizing even more, you know, locally from the same nation.
Yeah.
Of course, we want to see cross-cultural and all that, but I think at times we look just across the border instead of in our own nations.
True. That's absolutely true. Yeah. So if you're, I mean, you know, obviously I have the globe in my mind.
Yeah, I understand.
Different, right? What is allowed, what's not allowed. So it's just that live, learn concept.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you so much.
All of that, yeah.
We love to hear. I know that you are a big reader, Mo, and I think actually was it Harry Truman? He said, "Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers." So that's a good quote. You have a big library on your Kindle, but would there be a few books that you would like to highlight for us? And also later on, we'd love to get a bit of a list, and we will make that available. Just some books that has really influenced you over the last
All right. So I would say for those of you that maybe are sort of in the Bible maybe your SBS or BCC, or perhaps you're a teacher, or you teach from the scriptures. I think we need a fresh look at the book of Romans. And so I've been reading, there's a book by Scott McKnight, who's a professor in somewhere in the Chicago area. I think Northern maybe seminary. Scott McKnight, and it's called Reading Romans Backwards. So Reading Romans Backwards. That's a great book. And he's got a number of podcasts out where somebody's interviewing him and kind of draws out the main theme there. So I'll see if I can also send a link to some of those podcasts. And then another one is Preaching Romans. And Scott McKnight is one of the editors of that one. And it's called Preaching Romans. And there's 4 different views of the book of Romans. And what I love about this book is that it presents the view. And then in the appendix of the book, for each view, there are 3 sermons that are being preached based on that view. And so when you read the sermons, you catch the discipleship implications. For if you see Romans this way, then this is where it's applied. And then my concern is this is where it's not applied, right? So without getting into all the complications of that, those are 2 books that I think are really worth a read. And in fact, I may even put together a Google Classroom class on it and do something in the next couple of months just around that and the implications for discipleship. But that has really been a great read. Tom Wright's biography of Paul is another one. It's about a 450-page book. So again, you would really need to be someone who is familiar with biblical studies, but those books I am in the midst of and am very much enjoying. I think other books, there's a new book out by Michael Card, and it's called Inexpressible. I think it's Indescribable. It's called Indescribable, and it's about the Hesed of God, or the loving kindness of God. It's a fabulous book. If you want to spend some time devotionally to just remind yourself who our God is at his essence, I mean, this is a fabulous book. So it's called Indescribable, the Hesed of God. Yeah, I think I'll just leave you with that.
Great. Thank you so much. Now we're coming to an end here, but finally, in your position as an international leader and speaker, and spending still significant times usually in Europe, is there any advice you want to give to us as European leaders or leaders in Europe on all different levels? What would you say is our biggest need as leaders right now? Blind spots? Any recommendations for us? You can give us the whip if you like.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I did. Yeah, you sent this question ahead too. I'm typically not somebody who spots blind spots like that. My personality isn't like that. To say that.
Any encouragement you want to give us?
No, but I can say that this is, so. If I were to see a trend, just a cultural trend, okay, and even now with the COVID-19 and the possibilities of what we can do online, right? So I think that we have, somebody was making an argument with me about, putting forth a position that, online education is the way everything is going. And, this generation, they're wired for it. Like, they know the online thing. They're so much more familiar with it than we are, and blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of truth in that. So I'm not, However, this is what my, this is what I would say, like out of my intuition, is that our God is deeply personal. Like, he is more personal than we are personal. Like, he is phenomenally personal, and he engages humanity. He engages each one of us in the most intimate and personal ways. And as good as technology might be in transferring information, it will never replace interpersonal interaction. And not only that, my experience of young people today, particularly from the West, is they have less and less ability to truly be present, to truly be vulnerable, and all the essential interpersonal skills that are needed in order to really connect with God and one another. And I think God has given us a mission, a DTS, a university that values that interpersonalness. We know that our God is a personal, relational God, and I just don't want technology to take over in such a way that we lose what I think is one of our anointed strengths. As much as I want us to maximize technology where we can. Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you. I think we'll let that be the last word. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time and for investing into Europe this way. I hope we can have you another time with us in one of our lounges or different settings. There's so much to glean from you. So really appreciate that. And thank you for your leadership in the mission as well.
Thanks, Maureen.
And thank you, Martin, for helping us, all the ones with technology, getting us live. And thank you to all of you that's been watching and your comments. Mo, you'll have to read all these positive, all these encouragements that is on the side here. We did have some advice from Northern Europe. It says in Northern Europe, you got to go to a sauna with the guys and force them to wear a swimsuit by crashing their party. So there's some advice if you come to this part of the world.
Thanks for that.
This is what I have to deal with. See, so yeah. But next time we have Steve and Reed Mayers. So very happy to have them with us, and then Steve, he can introduce the ELLC because it's his baby.
Yeah.
So thank you for now. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.